You're listening to Dirty Feet, a dance podcast. I'm Allison Burns. For this episode of the podcast, I'm joined by two artists who are putting together a show called The Idea of the North that's going to be presented in Wakefield, which is in Quebec, not too far from Ottawa here. The event is called Rooted Contemporary Dance. And joining us today, first I'm going to introduce Jordan Simones, who is the choreographer for the flagship part of the show, the major work, and who was organizing and putting it all together. So welcome and hello.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. And Jordan, your collaborator is a musician, Dennis. We're going to be talking to him a little bit later. Before we get to him, I want to talk to you about your relationship to dance and what initially sparked your interest in dance.
Sure. Well, I think I was told that I came out of the womb with turnout. Though I don't know if I could say that was actually the case, but my parents put me in dance as a young child. I think I was 3 or 4, starting off with the baby ballet there. And yep, that's pretty much how I got started. I started right away at a studio in Oak Ridges, Ontario, Somerville Dance Academy. And I basically danced there for my whole childhood and adolescence until I was 16 in grade 12, and started with ballet, continued on shortly after with jazz and tap, then followed up by modern and lyrical dance and musical theater. So yeah, that's how I started, was apparently coming out of the womb with turned out feet.
It's a great advantage. And now to present a show that's specifically contemporary dance, how did you kind of land on that genre?
Well, I think my understanding of contemporary dance has really changed a lot over time. I think basically, even in my earlier 20s, I thought I really understood dance. I thought I really understood modern dance. I thought I really understood contemporary dance. I thought I really understood what lyrical dance meant. But it turns out I really didn't understand the differences between those things, and I think I got them confused in my adolescence or in my youth. And so now, to come to where I'm at now, organizing an event that's a contemporary dance event, I think it's an evolution of my understanding of what that means now. So, right now in my life, I'm really interested in contemporary dance, in improvisation, specifically in structured improv, and in being a student and being a collaborator, and really learning about what's going on in the world of contemporary dance in Ottawa, in Ontario, in Quebec, in Canada. So I'd really like to take a humble standpoint there, and not claim to be a professional, but claim to be a student and participant in the field. So I really feel like right now in my life, I'm just diving into it for real. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, there are so many ways this conversation can go from that answer. But I am going to take a beat to say hello to Dennis Bass, who is who's your collaborator in the music department for this show, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yes.
Correct. Thank you for being here, Dennis.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit? You were just talking about encounters before we turned on the microphones. So what is your relationship to dance as a musician?
That's a good question. I'm very new to dance. I've been involved, I guess, for 6 months now. And I never, before I met Jordan, I never really considered it something to pursue necessarily. But once we decided to take this project seriously and try to move forward with it, I dove in, and I've been checking out lots of shows, as many as I can at the NAC through Live Rush, and it's been very rewarding and interesting to see the connections between music or musicians and dancers. Specifically, what Jordan was just saying about improv, how it's the connections between those things. I'm a jazz musician myself, play saxophone, and it's just an interesting exploration for me to kind of see what the connections are and how I can help dancers explore that side of their creativity, and how they can help me explore my creativity when it comes to composing things or improvising or whatever it may be.
Awesome. Let's talk about Ideas of the North and where that came from and how that was at the very first seed of this project.
I was looking at some notebooks I brought today. As I was telling Dennis, I carry around many notebooks and I'm afraid of losing them all the time. But a couple of notes I had there were on our first meeting when Dennis first called and asked about doing a project together. And we talked about wanting to do something for Canada 150. And looking at my notes, we discussed a number of things that we could possibly do, what we were interested in. And a number of ideas came up, and I think we really got going on this idea of a landscape, a Canadian landscape. And that was sort of originally the catalyst for then leaping towards thinking about Glenn Gould's idea of the North, which was part of the Solitudes trilogy he did in the 60s, I believe. And so then through discussing Canada 150th, we talking about Canada, talking about landscapes, came to this idea, and then had future meetings, and that's sort of where this idea came from, though I don't want to say that it's, about at all. It's not about Glenn Gould, but I would say we had that as a starting point for where we are now. Yeah. And
where you are now is you have a cast of 8. Mm-hmm. There to be dancing and also one live musician in the work. So can we talk about how you decided those elements? Both in terms of the choreography and in terms of the music. How did you come to the choices about what you needed for this piece after you had the theme?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I'll speak to the dancing first, and then I'll pass over to you for our music. I think originally choosing the number of dancers, at first you start dreaming pretty big, and I'd like 15 to 20 dancers here, and then I'd like a bit of a smaller group there. And then once things got more realistic and your head's kind of coming out of the clouds a bit, we had to cut those numbers down a bit, which makes a lot of sense for, scheduling reasons, for organizing a group of people that way. But in terms of the number of people, we've got 3 scenes in the Idea of the North. The first scene has 4 dancers, the second scene has 3 dancers, and the third scene has 1 dancer and 1 live musician. And so in that sense, I think we knew over time, we decided that it would be this evolution towards this sense of creative solitude or creative isolation, and that's one reason why there's only 1 dancer in the last scene. When
it comes to the music, there was also I had to look at it realistically and say what is possible with the resources that we have. So the original idea was to have live music through most of it, and especially the first scene. And that ended up being unattainable just because of the amount of resources that we'd have to stick into it to make it happen. So it was supposed to be, live improvised music with live improvised dance, and then that ended up not working out the way we thought it could. And so then I suggested a time period, let's say, for what the first scene could be, asked Jordan if that's cool, and then I actually went to the Batsheva performance here at the NAC, and that really inspired me so their show was an hour and a half straight through, and it kind of had these different scenes within it. And so I decided to, based off of that, kind of let that inspire me to break the first scene also into 3 scenes, with the music, with the soundtrack, and to start composing off of that and creating ideas and kind of thinking about, what could the dancers, how could they react to what I'm writing here, and kind of worked off of that idea. And so now we have a 20-minute soundtrack basically for the first scene, and it kind of progresses through through different stages, and kind of expresses the way that we are inspired or inundated here in society with different ideas and creative influences as well, kind of exploring that idea of creativity here in civilization, what that's like, so that's where we ended up with this soundtrack now, and I was really glad to have worked with my friend Clayton Connell, who's a fantastic musician in town, and he helped me put the whole package together and composed parts of the track as well, and it's a really cool collaborative experience. So yeah.
I think when you begin mixing mediums like dance and music, which are almost always paired, you have to approach the making of the music in a much different way. I think there's always a tendency for young creators to pile on some epic music to a piece that kind of drowns out the dancing or the movie or whatever other art form that they're trying to blend with it. Is this something that you've encountered approaching dance fresh?
Yes. It's something I've had to think about for sure. And the first show I went to was Hubbard Street Dance. And from that, I don't know why, but now that we're talking about it, when we went into that show, the first thing I noticed was how the music plays a background role. So the music or the rhythm or whatever it may be, that the noise is secondary to the dance. The dancers react to that, and it's not, it's not like an epic movie soundtrack. It's something for the dancers to react to. So that's something I definitely took into account right off the top. And several times during the process, I've had to kind of take a step back and say, okay, does this really give the dancers room and also allow the audience to see what's going on stage and not be interrupted by my soundtrack, right? This is very much not about the music necessarily, as a priority, but how everything interacts and how the audience finds that. And so at several times I've also, kind of put the soundtrack out a little bit to friends of mine and have them give a listen and kind of see what their feedback is. Just sort of show it to them, have them listen and be like, and not say anything, and kind of see what the first reaction is. And it's been interesting to hear reactions and kind of build that into the way that the soundtrack has come together. So it's been a very interesting and unique learning curve for sure.
Cool. And I'm wondering, Jordan, if you have a perspective on that from the choreographer's seat.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is my first time working with a musician for a project like this. So it's definitely been a learning curve for me as well. And it's also been sort of, a dream come true. It's been so awesome to work with Dennis and Clayton on especially the particular scene he's referring to, the first scene in the piece where they've created this soundtrack. And, I think part of it is getting something original created for you is sort of like a gift in itself. But then working with that piece and having it change over time, it's not a static thing. It's dynamic, and it's been changing every week since we started. So that element of working with music, working with original music being created specifically for an idea you have, has definitely been really, really cool, really interesting. Somewhat challenging, but also more so the working with those constraints has really been a challenge I find very interesting and valuable. So it's fantastic. I'm thrilled about it. Yeah.
Cool. So this has been brought up several times already, the improvisational aspect of the work. So we definitely need to talk about this. So from the background of all the 8 performers that you have, do they already have experience with improvisation? And then how do you approach it in the structure of your choreography?
Well, in the first scene in particular, all 4 dancers have experience with improvisation. They all went to the School of Dance. In the second piece, there are 3 tap dancers who have experience with improvisation in a group that we're all a part of called the Ottawa Rhythm Initiative. And so we're working on improv with live musicians there right now. And the final scene, the last dancer is a young lady. She's only 14. She's fantastic, and she has experience with improvisation at her studio, Collie Andrews. So everyone comes to the table with experience, though I would say very different. Maybe all of the dancers in the first scene, having gone to the School of Dance, have a similar background, having come to that understanding together. And, you know, how I would approach it and how I've approached it for this piece is, you know, I've been improvising in dance since I was a child. We used to go to, at dance competitions, they would have these improv challenges where you would go on stage and, improv to a piece of random music the adjudicators would give you. And that was sort of where I came from as a kid in the dance comp scene. And that was my experience with improv, which was thrilling, but I also wasn't necessarily given very many tools about it. It was never really practiced or rehearsed, or theory was never discussed too much. It just wasn't a focus of where I grew up dancing. And so I think now in my life, I'm, again, sort of really coming to meet that world. So, taking more class, talking to more people in the field about it. Specifically, I'm part of a dance collective in Wakefield with a couple of ladies there, a number of whom have extensive experience in their past with improvisation and or who are currently taking a lot of classes downtown at the School of Dance and other places. So we have all kind of collaborated together to practice and learn. And so I've definitely taken from there, taken from my own experience to come to this project with what improv means. And I find it fascinating every time I practice it. I just sometimes don't understand how it's happening. I just think, how is it that, my body is creating something in this moment? How does it know what to do? And I think especially with your understanding, Dennis, of improv in jazz music, I love hearing Dennis talk about that from a musical perspective. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm coming from and how I how I've put it into the idea of the North, but I find it fascinating and surprising every day I practice it. I find it amazing. Yeah.
This just recently came into the picture, but my entire career, my entire musical existence revolves around improvisation, right? Jazz, that's what jazz is. It's just improvised music all the time, and it never is the same thing twice. And you're always, especially the most important part of it is that you're always interacting with the other musicians. And so after our last rehearsal, I realized that the number of parallels is incredible between the two. So the four dancers in the first scene now, for example, they also all interact with one another, and the way that they improvise and interact expresses their own creativity and also brings something across to the audience who's watching, right? And that's my entire purpose as a musician too. When I'm playing jazz, I'm interacting with the people in my group, but then also trying to draw in the audience, right, and to connect with them and kind of communicate my message, whatever that may be in the moment. And for me personally, it's always I'm improvising something, and so I play it, and if it sounds really good, and someone says, do that again, well, I can't, right? That's just whatever it was in the moment. I'm right there in the moment playing something and performing it, and then it's gone, and I can't. It's hard to recreate, which might be something unique to me, maybe, I don't know, but and so I've been trying to communicate that to the dancers too, that to explore your creativity, to be inventive and kind of think outside the box, and maybe do something that seems wrong in the moment, or kind of doesn't fit and maybe sticks out a little bit, and see how just in rehearsals to see how that works, how the other dancers react to it, how Jordan and myself react to it, stuff like that, and kind of see, kind of explore that, and then apply that when it comes to the performance, right? So I'm sitting at home practicing improvisation all the time. So what the only thing people see is what I then do on stage at the performance, but all that stuff really happens when you're practicing, when you're rehearsing, right? So that's kind of the idea that I've been working with, and trying to and seeing how the dancers react to that, and also how I can use their experiences and inform my performing and also my future career goals or whatever it might be. That I'm always trying to learn and soak up as much of this art form as I can, and allow it to inform what I'm already doing, fusing these things and making something new.
So for Ideas of the North, can you each give us a pitch for the show for an audience member, a potential audience member?
Well, I think that, the idea of the North is about a movement, an evolution from ignorance towards enlightenment. That's sort of what, in a sense, the show is about. And I think that, there's quite a lot happening in the show. There's quite a lot of variety of dance and music that people are going to get to see and witness and be a part of. And basically, we hope that anytime when you go to see a live dance or live music, a live performance, that you're going in to be present and to slow down, and to listen and to have an experience. So I would say that the idea of the North is going to be an experience. And yeah, that's what I would say. Yep.
Yeah, building off of that, that would be my general idea too. The whole idea behind the project was this interaction between genres, first of all, and then also the interaction between the dancers and the audience. And really, I think it's something unique from what I can tell. Just the whole concept, how we've kind of structured this, and it should really encourage the audience as well to consider their own creativity. Where are you drawing your influences from? What makes you tick, or what makes you create these different aspects? But yeah, the whole show has been kind of has always been in the back of our heads as a interaction, first of all, between the art forms, but then also the audience and like the whole package and how that all works together. So if you're interested in fusion and kind of bringing together these different art forms, I think it's perfect for you.
Great. And so the idea of the North, which was co-created between Jordan Simonas and Dennis Bass, who I've been speaking with, that's actually being presented alongside Something's Laughing by Owen Tuff, which is a shorter work that's going to be shown first. And the show is May 12th, 2017 at 8 p.m. And it's going to be at Centre Wakefield La Pêche in Wakefield. And tickets range from $10 to $15. And while I have you here, I just want to talk about Wakefield briefly, because it's this sweet little town in Quebec, beautiful, beautiful on the river, and there's art there. They do the Tada Festival, which happens in the summertime, it's a dance and theater festival. Tell us a little bit about Wakefield.
Sure. Well, I moved to the area in 2014. I started off house sitting in the area, and Wakefield is a very interesting little village. It's beautiful, as you said. It's right on the river, and because it's a small town, I don't know if this is just the nature of being in a small town. Everyone knows everyone, but not only that. I think more importantly, and the most interesting thing is that there are many characters in the area. So lots of eccentric personalities, lots of art, lots and lots of volunteering happening to make events like this possible. So the volunteering community in Wakefield is immense and very hardworking. But yeah, there's always something really interesting happening in Wakefield, whether it's at a show at the Black Sheep or any number of independent projects or festivals that any musicians and artists are putting on. As you said, the Tada Festival in the summertime is something I'm a part of as well, happening in September of this year. But there's so much going on. There's Earth Day this Saturday at the Wakefield Community Center, Centre Wakefield La Pêche. Any weekend or really any given day, there's live music, there's live comedy events. There's just so much going on, and in that way, it is an incredibly inspiring and lively place. And the best skiing ever.
I didn't know. Great. So thank you so much, Jordan and Dennis. And if you want more information, go to Facebook and search for Rooted Contemporary Dance. You can learn about the show. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Dirty Feet. I'm Allison Burns with a few thank yous. First to Paula Flalo and the No More Radio Network. Also to Mainline Theatre and Montreal Improv Theatre, and to all present and past team members who can be found on our website, dirtyfeetpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Dirty Feet Podcast, and follow us on Twitter at Dirty Feet. Thank you for listening. Until next time. Stick around for a preview of our upcoming episode. Now, Tristan Henry is a composer, a multi-instrumentalist, and a teacher, and he's currently based out of Montreal. He holds an AEC in audio techniques from Musique Technique and a BFA in composition from Concordia University. From your perspective, what is the fundamental difference about composing music to be played on its own and composing music that's going to accompany such a thing as dance?